Hi guys, and welcome to the channel. In today's tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to cut and sew this beautiful maxi gathered skirt with very easy steps. So this skirt has a waistband, it's gathered skirt, a zip at the back, and it's hemmed at the bottom. So if you'd love to watch more videos from me, make sure you subscribe and hit the like button. So let's get into the tutorial of cutting and sewing this beautiful skirt. So we're going to use my fabric and fusible interfacing. So this is my waistband, as you can see. I'm going to show you how to make it from scratch. I used my fusible interfacing to stabilize it, to make it stiff and give it some structure. So the first thing we're going to make is the waistband. Then we're going to go down to the skirt. But first, I'm going to get my fabric before we make the waistband and determine the full length of the skirt. So you have to determine if you want your skirt to be a short one or very long. So mine is going to be long. I'm going to determine the full length. Then next we're going to make our waistband. So to make the waistband, I'm going to get my waist measurement plus seam allowance. Then I'm going to cut a long strip using the waist measurement, and I'm also going to cut my fusible interfacing. So in width it's going to be 5 inches including seam allowance. Then in length it's going to be the measurement of my waist circumference. So I'm going to press my fusible interfacing on top of the fabric. So this fusible interfacing has got the shiny part. The shiny part should face the wrong side of the fabric. And I've also left out 1/2 inch up and down. Then I'm going to get my pressing iron and I'm going to stitch. So the 1/2 inch will be for the seam allowance. So I'm just going to press with my pressing iron until the fusible interfacing holds firm onto the fabric. So just going to get your hot pressing iron and do what I'm doing. So after pressing, it has to hold firm. As you can see, it's holding and my waistband looks nice and firm. Then we can fold it at the center. As you can see, then I'm going to press. So now that we have our waistband ready, I can now start working on the skirt. So this is the fabric we're going to use for the skirt, and I'll measure the full length of the skirt. Then for the full length of the skirt, you can determine how long you want, whether you want it short or long. Then for the width of the skirt, I'm going to get my hip circumference by 3. That's how wide my skirt. Then I'm going to make gathers, and the gathers will be reduced to the size of my waistband. So there are 2 ways of making gathers. The first way is by using a straight stitch on your sewing machine. You're going to use the longest stitch possible and make 2 straight stitches, then start making the gathers. Another way is to use your hand sewing needle Then you're going to stitch around, then make gathers, and the other one is by using a gathering foot. So I'm going to go on my sewing machine. I'm going to sew the longest stitch possible. I'm going to sew 2 longest stitches possible. Then I'm going to pull them to make my gathers. Then after stitching the 2 long possible stitches, I'm going to start pulling my thread. You have to be careful when pulling your thread, and you have to use very strong thread because it can break if it's not very strong. So you're going to start gathering and reducing this to the size of the waistband. So remember, we use the width of the skirt. And the other way of making gathers, like I said, you get your hand sewing needle, then you run a stitch by hand. You just run a stitch by hand, then you start pulling and making the gathers. So I'm just going to show you that method as well. So you get a thread which is as long as your waist measurement, as long as your waistband, plus extra 4 inches for pulling. So I'm going to run a stitch right here. This is an ideal method for beginners if you've never done it. Just run long stitch. Then after you run your long stitch, remember I said the width of this fabric is the hip circumference times 3. You're going to reduce that hip circumference times 3 to the waistband measurement. So I'm just going to do the gathers by hand. Then I'm going to start pulling and gathering my thread. So I'm just going to tie the end here. Then after tying the top part, we're going to start reducing and gathering our skirt to the size of the waistband. So I'm just going to start pulling and gathering. It's very easy, guys, but you have to take your time and don't break your thread. So these are the 2 ways you can use to gather your skirt. You can use the first one I showed you using the sewing machine or using a gathering foot, or this easier one using the hand sewing needle. So I find this method to be easier, especially if you've never gathered before. It's very easy. So after gathering and reducing it to the size of my waistband, this will be ready to sew and make our beautiful skirt. So this is how you gather, guys. Just keep pulling the gathered fabric, and this is how beautiful the gathers are going to look once you reduce it to the size of your waistband. Isn't it beautiful? So if you love this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't done so. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to reduce it to the size of my waistband, and then we're going to get our waistband and we're going to start making our skirt. So here's my waistband. We're going to check if it's equivalent to the waist and to the skirt measurement. I'm just going to place it in there and I will stitch it later on. So before we start stitching it into the waistband, you have to make sure you tie the sides and also run another stitch on top of the gathers in order to just secure them. So I'm just tying the sides. So after tying the sides, I'm going to run another stitch on top of my gathers just to secure them before I put my waistband. So I'm just going on top of my gathers, as you can see. I'm just running another straight stitch over the gathers. This is just to secure them. Make sure you don't dislocate or destroy the gathering pattern. You have to be very careful when stitching on top here. So after running a stitch on top, this is how it looks, and I don't have to worry about losing my gathers in case the gathered thread breaks. My gathers are still intact. So next we can move on and get our waistband. So this is a waistband, guys. This is what I've done. I've stitched it this side on the wrong side, then I'm going to turn it inside like I have done. So I'm going to do the same on the other side. Then I'm going to press it. Then next I'm going to fold. Remember the seam allowances I left out? Half, I'm going to fold them inside. Then I'm going to, this side I left out ½ inch seam allowance on both sides. I'm going to fold them in. These are the seam allowances I'm talking about. The part without, I'm going to fold them, the part without the fusible interfacing. I'm going to fold them inside, then I'll sandwich my skirt between. Then I'm going to stitch. So first I'm just going to fold the ½ inch seam allowance I left. So I'm just going to fold it both sides. Then I'm going to press. So after pressing, this is how it would look. Then next I'm going to sandwich my gathered skirts between my waistband and I'm going to stitch. But before I stitch, I'm going to first take cut off the raw edges of the gathers. If you have a serger or overlocking machine, I want you guys to see this part. This part here, just cut them off, trim them off. You can take to the overlocking machine and straighten it. If you don't have an overlocking machine, you can just remove them with your pair of scissors, because if you don't remove them, they will make some funny shape in the waistband. So just trim these off, but careful not to disturb the gathered thread. But I would highly recommend taking it on the overlocking machine just to serge it off, because the overlocker usually cuts out the fabric and makes it straight. Then after, we'll sandwich it between the waistband and take it to the sewing machine to stitch it. So I'm just going to take it to the sewing machine and stitch it. So after sewing, this is how beautiful the skirt is going to look like. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hem the skirt and put my zipper at the back. Isn't this beautiful, guys? So if you love this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more sewing and pattern drafting videos. So I'm just going to put my zipper at the back, and I'm going to hem. This is my zipper that I'm going to put on my back side, and I'm also going to fold and hem this part, the bottom part of the skirt. So I'm just going to fold it and press. This is the hem. Just going to fold 1 inch by fold it twice, then I'll press with this pressing iron. Then I'll take it to the sewing machine. So after I finish sewing it, this is how beautiful it's going to look. Thank you so much, guys, for watching, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more sewing and pattern drafting tutorials. Bye.